Good morning, everyone, and welcome. My name is Shakita Brooks Jones, and as a lifelong resident of Montgomery, Alabama, I'm thrilled to be leading today's keynote conversation with the first ever African American mayor in Montgomery's history, Stephen L. Reed. Montgomery is a city rich with history, the birthplace of the civil rights movement and the foundation of Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream. In fact, Mayor Reed's predecessor, Mayor Todd Strange, launched a campaign in 2013 that referred to Montgomery as the capital of dreams. So today's theme is dreams. Dreams around the role that the arts could play in shaping this city's future. Dreams around fostering strong race relations. And of course, Mayor Reed's own dreams as the city's elected leader. So Mayor Reed, welcome. We're delighted to have you with us. So let's just dig right in. So you've made it clear in numerous interviews that you view Montgomery as a leader in the New South. Describe a little bit of what led you to want to even run for mayor of Montgomery back in 2019, and what your dream for Montgomery is now that you have assumed the office as the 57th mayor.
Well, thanks for having me. First of all, Shakita, I really am glad to be on with you and really appreciate the work that you do throughout the community. And I'm glad to kind of share, some of my story and some of that of others like yourselves who really help make this city what it is. And I guess to answer your initial question, I was led to run for office because I was really out of a matter of frustration and inspiration. So the inspiration of President Obama's campaign that led me to public service, along with that, the legacy of my mother and father being so involved here in Montgomery and their contributions to the community throughout the civil rights movement and even after that. But kind of more in the near term, it was, seeing President Obama run and really hearing his challenge, more important than that, of a new generation, those of us in the Joshua generation, to step up and take the baton and to serve. And while that led me to run for my first office as probate judge in 2011, I think I was inspired to run for mayor after that because I realized in that position I couldn't really have the level of impact that I want in terms of where the community was headed. I could not put my finger on the scale, if you will, and I was a little bit frustrated with that. And I loved the role of being probate judge and the things that we were able to do, but I wanted to have a more active role in future outcomes of the city. And so I kind of sum up my reason for running, for being out of frustration and inspiration. And that's what led me to run. And I think that, since we've been in office, we've tried to make sure that we can influence outcomes in a positive way, because my vision for the city of Montgomery is we can't just say we're going to be leaders in the New South. We actually have to do the work. We actually have to lead, and we actually have to be trailblazers. And, by saying that, it kind of puts a level of expectation that you're going to follow through. And that's what we're trying to do, is to take the frustration with the progress that we had not made and to try to accelerate that progress now that we're in position to do that as a chief executive for the city and as someone who is casting the vision for the city and then pushing forward to implement that vision.
Okay. So speaking of following through, as when you were elected mayor, you mentioned that art creates a unity among community, and you pledged to look to elevate the arts even more. And, I was also involved in a transition process, so I do know that you created a committee that of people in the community that were leaders in our art community. So what initiatives have you taken as mayor in developing public art this far, and what effect have they had on local communities?
Well, we started by creating a Department of Cultural Affairs because we felt like it was important to have a cabinet level department leader who could take our libraries, could take our museums, could take our city events, and help amplify the message through art. And we've got so many talented artists in our community, and I'm probably going to get in trouble for trying to name them. But whether it's your Kalonji Gilchrist or your Bill Fords, your Sonny Paulson, your Kevin Kings, Michelle Browder, and so many others, Winifred Hawkins, and Milton Madison. I could go on, and somebody's going to ping me and say I didn't say their name, so I shouldn't have started that. But we've got so many artists who are doing great work that we really thought that they were not being allowed to flourish under the current, under the then administration's organization. And so when we came in, we wanted to create something that really focused on allowing our local artists to tell their story, and to tell the story about not only Montgomery's history, but of its present and of its future. And so since then, we have commissioned murals, whether it's Kevin King's mural in West Montgomery on Oak Street along the historic Selma to Montgomery Voting Rights March Trail, or whether it was the Black Lives Matter mural on the fountain right here at One Court Square, right in the heart of downtown, where slaves were once sold on that very site downtown. We commissioned that mural, and it's something that has stayed there since. And there have been others that Cassandra Sanders has done, dedicated to Claudette Colvin, who, of course, is as a young teenager, stood up to the Montgomery police and the laws forcing Black people to the back of the bus prior to Mrs. Rosa Parks doing the same. And, we felt like having a Department of Cultural Affairs could help us with our music, our dance, our theater groups, really do more collectively and to show the importance of the arts to a community in a way that the city had not done before. And we're proud of the work that's been done in less than 2 years, and we're even more excited about some of the upcoming projects that we have going forward.
Yeah, you named some of my favorites, but you're bolder than I am. I wouldn't name them. As a follow-up, because you did mention the fountain, and that was something that got national attention. And I have seen just the energy and the creation of just so much positive things at Montgomery, starting even before the painting of the fountain, and just a way for us to talk about race relations and social justice in community. How do you see the local artists and civic organizations moving and pushing that forward in the community?
Well, we think art can help us engage, enlighten, and elevate various positives throughout our community. And we think that part of that is being able to have a dialogue through art, and whether it's our museum or whether it's a mural, bringing in the type of art that allows for discussion points around different topics. And with the mural, it was a way for us to be deliberate about the message that so many young activists were trying to get office holders like myself to understand, to bring about change through nonviolent protests. And we wanted to do something to recognize that, understanding that the symbols are just one part of the solution, but the other part being the substance and the policies that you enact. And art can kind of tell the story about where a community is and where a community is going, and give a voice to people who may feel like they have been left out of development, who may have felt like they've been left out of the growth of a community, and to let people know that there's attention here, there's an appreciation here for what exists, or what has the potential to exist. And I kind of look at it as a way to kind of put water on a flower to help it bloom. And that's what art allows us to do. And we try to do that whether it be through independent projects and our support therein, or if it's through city-led initiatives and bringing on the art community to help us in those endeavors and to really help bring about that level of expression that we want to share, not just through the purveyors of art, but maybe those who don't even consider themselves in that space to be able to be transformed by the messaging and by the impact itself.
You know, I do a lot of work in Montgomery, and I host a lot of people from all across the country. And so, particularly when people come back and they see the changes as it relates to art, they are impressed. And one of the things that I've heard, especially our young people that have left, they're saying they want to come back. They want to be a part of what this is.
Great.
Switching gears a little bit, you know, one of the seals that you could see prominently in America, in Montgomery, is that we have on our ceiling, we have the cradle of the Confederacy and the birthplace of the Civil Rights Movement. So when you mentioned that we have attention, we do have attention there. So in what ways do you think that Montgomery and its history has influenced you? And in what ways do you hope to influence the city, thinking about that tension that we still hold in the community?
Well, I think Montgomery is a city that is probably best summed up as not only complex, having a complex issue, but has a history of conflict in itself of both what is right and what is wrong. So it shows certainly some of the pains of the past, but also in the progress of the past. And I think that's what that seal represents. And the progress being the birthplace of the Civil Rights Movement comes from the place of the birthplace of the Confederacy. And it's something that we have to keep in mind so that people are aware of how things came to be. And I think, you know, what I want us to do and how it's impacted me is to understand, even throughout some of the obstacles, people have found opportunities. And even with that, it did not come easy. It did not come by consensus. It came through hard work of everyday people pushing forward. And what I want to utilize, I think, most about the history of Montgomery is the analogy I like to say quite a bit is that the windshield is bigger than the rear view. And, you know, the rear view allows you to see what's behind you, but it's hard to move forward if you are consistently looking behind you. You have to be aware of it, but it's hard to drive. It's hard to run. It's hard to walk if you're looking over your shoulder into the rear view. But it's important to know what's there. But the windshield allows us to really have a broader view of what is in front of us and where we can get to and the path forward. And that's what the history of Montgomery, and that's what, you know, being born and raised here allows me to internalize through decisions that I make and through the leadership positions on various issues that I take, is that we've got to continue to look forward. We've got to continue to focus on the windshield and what's ahead of us, and to create the path that we want to be on for a city that truly wants to be a city of today and a city of tomorrow.
Yes. The last question that I have for you is that you mentioned that a speech from President Obama made you think, maybe I need to quit looking at things from the financial side and look at things from the service side. For those watching today, particularly the Peace Studios community of young artists and journalists, what should they get involved? Why should they get involved in the service side? And how can they do that?
Well, the why is very easy because those who are part of this audience need to know that their creativity, their innovation is needed. It's needed everywhere in this country, probably maybe even more so now than any time in the last 30 to 40 years. We need the creatives to be a part of the discussion, because I believe that public art drives civic progress. I believe that it can shine a light on critical issues. And I think that we can improve our quality of place by listening to more people who are not just focused on the policy or the profits, but who are focused on those ancillary things that help us get there, right? That help us bring in more people. And often that comes from a non-traditional place. And I think that those who are wondering why, I think we need their involvement is because of where the country lies, not just where the city of Montgomery or the Alabama or the American South, but where the country lies in its divides, in its chasms that are growing across racial lines, across economic lines. And we need more uniters. We need more people who can focus on the common good as opposed to the things that divide us. And I think that happens when new people get involved in the process, when new people decide, you know what, I'm going to get involved in a nonprofit. I'm going to get involved in a for-profit agency. I'm going to get involved at the civic level, at the state level, and I'm going to not only learn a little bit about the political process, but I'm going to bring my talents to that process as well to maybe help break the gridlock. And you get involved really, by volunteering, by reaching out to various organizations in your community, by offering, yes, to maybe serve on a board, but even run for office, and by talking with people who are involved in that process already at the local, state, and national level. And I think there are a number of organizations that people can get involved with without having to start their own, to learn about civics, to learn about government and the role that government plays, and to learn about maybe how politics is done where they may be. And you don't have to be a legacy politically. You don't have to be a legacy financially. The thing that is so great about Montgomery, the thing that I like to share about what happened here in 1955 and over the course of a 381-day movement is that there were no legacies here. There were no people here who had all these great titles, positions, because guess what? We didn't have them. So it was because of their sacrifice that we have them now. But when we think about how change typically happens, whether it's been through the civil rights movement or other movements in this country, it has typically been led often by the underclass. It's typically been led by everyday people. It's typically been led by ordinary people doing extraordinary things. And that is a potential that everyone who will view this has, wherever their space may be. And that's not to say that the first time out you will be victorious or you will hit a home run. You should understand that nothing that we read about happened overnight. Nothing that we read about in terms of change or progress in this country happened without obstacles and without hurdles being placed in front of those who were seeking it. But the progress came because of the patience and the perseverance of those who would not be deterred. And I think that's what we have in so many of our creatives across this country and so many of our young people who have helped bring transformation already to this country in the last year plus, through protests, through legislation, through action that is still needed at various levels of our community. So I want to encourage all of them to be involved, to get involved, and not to let the naysayers or the deniers keep you from bringing about change. And it doesn't always have to be through an elected position or appointed position. It can come in a number of ways. And I always like to say that it really takes all of us working together to bring about the type of change that is needed. It just takes all of us being willing to be involved at some level or another in creating that change to make it possible.
Yes, thank you for that. And one of the things that you said, it takes all of us working together and bridging those generational gaps so we can all do that. The young and the old artists. And that was the beautiful thing about the list of people that you named earlier. They were young and old artists. So that's beautiful. So, and with that, we like to wrap up today's conversation. And what I do want to say before we give you our final thanks is we, as a lifelong resident of Montgomery, as yourself, we want to invite people to come to the City of Dreams. Come visit us. Come see what we are doing. Thank you to everyone who has joined. Mayor Reed, it's been a pleasure, and thank you again.
Thank you for having me.